Amazing discovery. Soldier and his K9 unveil the touching truth behind a little girl's hidden pain. Jake Thompson walked with an uneven rhythm, the scruff of his boots whispering against the cracked pavement of the small Texas town. He inhaled the familiar scent of the dry, warm air, but breathed something more troubling, the weight of memories, echoes of chaos screaming in his mind. Each day felt like combat, and beside him, Max, his faithful K9 companion, trotted with head held high, a lifeline to a life that felt increasingly foreign. Their routine led them past an abandoned playground, the rusted swings swaying gently in the breeze. Everything about it felt sorrowful, overgrown grass, peeling paint, but it was the sight of a little girl that drew him in, Lucy. She sat on a swing, clutching a frayed teddy bear, eyes filled with a sadness that resonated deep within him. Jake hesitated, confronted by the stark contrast of her innocent despair, stirring memories of his own struggles with lost goodbyes he never wanted to say. As he approached her, the unexpected heaviness of their shared solitude pressed upon him. "Hey there," Jake said, his voice unexpectedly gentle, and was met with a small nod. Her big eyes, laden with an unspoken hurt, compelled him to ask, "What's your name?" They exchanged words, filtered through the stark sadness of their respective solitudes. He learned about her parents' divorce, the harsh bullying at school. A familiar ache twisted in Jake's chest. He recognized her hidden pain, loss and trauma mirrored in his own experiences. He pondered how they were both on opposite sides of resilience, struggling. Before they continued, "I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Despite his hesitation, Jake felt the urge to connect deeper, to offer companionship through Max, perhaps a bridge to something brighter in her chaos. Yet he felt the precarious nature of this bond. They both wore their wounds like badges, but could they really help each other? Moments later, he sensed the encroaching tension as Lucy's mother entered the playground. Her protective demeanor loomed heavy, suspicion clouding her features. "Stay away from my daughter," she warned, and Jake felt his heart race. "I'm not a threat," he replied, desperation squeezing his chest. "I understand her pain. I know how it feels to struggle." Lucy, caught in the middle, watched the rising conflict with wide eyes. The emotional landscape shifted, two adults clashing, over her life, over her choices. Jake saw the confusion on her face and felt a growl of anguish rise within him. How could he prove he was there to protect, to understand? And yet, he sensed the fear and walls Lucy's mother built for her, stemming from her own experiences. Each felt profoundly isolated in their struggles, the questions unspoken yet palpable. What does it mean to protect someone we care for? What does it take to heal? An uneasy silence settled as the tension simmered, an invisible wall building between them. The stakes had escalated, and as Jake stood firm, uncertainty gripped him. Did his presence compromise her safety? Did he dare to hope for understanding? The winds of change crackled through the air, ubiquitous but fragile. Their lives intersected at a desperate crossroads, and neither wanted to sever the fragile thread tying them to one another. Choices loomed, and the air grew thick with unspoken hopes and fears as they all stood on the precipice of a decision that could alter their lives forever. Jake held his ground, but every second felt like an eternity, the weight of Lucy's mother's gaze suffocating. His instincts urged him to step back, to reassure Lucy that she was safe, but an unconsidered impulse ignited within him. He needed to convey his sincerity, to communicate that their pains, while different, were intrinsically linked. "Listen," Jake said, his voice low yet steady, "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because I care about what Lucy is feeling. It's okay to need help. I know it all too well." He glanced at Lucy, whose innocent eyes seemed to reflect both hope and fear. Would his words gain her mother South trust or drive a wedge deeper? But as Lucy's mother crossed her arms, her defenses fortified, Jake steeled his resolve. The shriek of the rusted swings cut through the air, a metaphor for their internal struggles, swinging between despair and hope, loss and connection. In that moment, he became painfully aware of his own wounds, lost friends, broken dreams, and a battle that continued to rage within. "Mama," Lucy interjected, her small voice quaking but determined. "He's nice. He really understands." Jake's heart leaped at her words. Her fragile courage echoed his own journey through pain and loss. He realized that their struggles were not separate entities, they were threads woven into the same fabric of resilience, healing, and the pursuit of happiness. But could he break through the overprotective barriers that Lucy's mother had constructed? The woman's expression softened just a fraction. "You've seen hard things, haven't you?" she asked, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. It wasn't a question, it was an invitation to share his story. "I have. I lost people I loved in battle," Jake confessed, the admission raw and unguarded. "I come from a place where it's hard to share. But I've learned that healing begins when we connect with others who understand our pain." The silence grew heavier, wrapping around them like a blanket full of shared grief yet laced with the possibility of hope. Max, as if sensing the shift, let out a soft whine and laid down, offering a comforting presence amidst the turmoil. Lucy's mother's expression flickered as she witnessed this bond. "But how can you understand what Lucy is going through?" she challenged. He drew a deep breath, feeling the tumult of emotions swirling. "I may have different scars," he said slowly, searching for the right words, "but grief, fear, and loneliness don't discriminate. Lucy deserves someone who sees her pain and is willing to listen. Just like I needed someone when I came home." Lucy's mother took a tentative step back, slightly lowering her guard. The mother's love was palpable, but so was her fear, fearing the world, fearing relationships, fearing the vulnerability of opening up. It dawned on Jake that at this moment, he was not just trying to reach out to Lucy, he was confronting his own fears, confronting the silence that had defined his life since returning from combat. There was a part of him that wanted to scream for understanding, for connection, just as Lucy's eyes pleaded for acceptance. "I promise, I won't hurt her," he said firmly, locking eyes with Lucy's mother. "But sometimes we need to talk about our pain to let the healing begin together." As the words left his mouth, a tremor coursed through him. The moment hung delicately in the air, crisp with the potential for change, an uncharted territory that could lead them all closer to healing. But beneath the weight of this vulnerability was still an unsettling doubt. Had he done enough to bridge the gap? Would Lucy's mother see the truth in his heart, or would she still view him as a threat? The clash of fear and hope thundered in the silence that followed, a judgment that loomed before him. And in the depths of his mind, Jake questioned whether he could truly be the anchor for Lucy, the figure of reassurance she so desperately needed. He could feel his heart pounding as the air thickened with unresolved tension. This was a turning point, and whatever came next would change everything. What would it take for them to move forward? Could they find a way to trust each other? Jake realized that this was about more than just his connection with Lucy, it was also about confronting the silent battles that loomed within and outside of him. The moment felt electric, charged with meaning but also fraught with uncertainty. Together, they stood at a precipice, ready to either leap into the unknown or retreat into their safety nets. But Jake was not ready to lose the chance to forge a connection that could transform them both in ways neither had anticipated. "Give us a chance," he urged softly, but as he spoke, he also considered the weight of that invitation. If he stepped too far, what could be lost? But if he remained static, what fragments of hope might slip away forever? The question lingered in the air. The moment stretched painfully, and all he felt was the pressure of anticipated change, the imperative for resolution hanging delicately, begging to be addressed. Who would take the leap first? Jake's heart raced in the charged silence, each tick of the clock amplifying the urgency. He had laid the groundwork, now, it was time to navigate the fragile intimacy he had opened with Lucy's mother. Every breath he took felt like a test of his resolve. What would it take to truly connect with them both? "Lucy needs you, just as much as you need her," he said, his voice a steady anchor amidst the storm. "You protect her, but sometimes love means letting go of fear." He shifted slightly, his posture open, as if to physically embody his intentions. The woman's lips pressed into a thin line, her features tightening. She was a fortress. He could feel it in the contractions of her body language, every inch of her etched with a fierce protectiveness. Yet, there was a longing hiding beneath the surface. Jake could see it in the way her gaze flickered toward Lucy, bright with affection but dulled by worry. "Love isn't just what you give. It's about sharing burdens too," he continued, wanting to penetrate the thick armor she had donned so firmly. As he spoke, he recalled his own return from combat, how his mother had struggled to relate to a son-turned-stranger, lost in the shadows of his despair. He had craved connection then, just as Lucy did now. "What makes you think you're the right person to help Lucy?" Her voice was sharp, yet beneath it lay an unwitting curiosity. "Because I've been where she is." The words spilled out with conviction, an appeal from the core of his being. "I fought to drown my pain in silence, and that only left me more detached. I learned that opening up begins the healing." Her brow furrowed at his words, as if she were wrestling with her understanding of sorrow and vulnerability. Just then, a gust of wind sent a swirl of leaves tumbling across the playground, punctuating their moment of tension. He found himself searching for the right memories, ones that would resonate with her. "When I lost my friends, I didn't know how to grieve. I just shut it all away," he admitted. "But in accepting that pain, I discovered I could still love, still connect. And that's what I want for Lucy." The tiniest flinch crossed her face, almost imperceptible. Jake felt momentum building, a rafting wave against the shore made of fears and parental instincts. "Mama, please." Lucy's voice danced through the tension, a sweet plea that beckoned tenderness from a place both fragile and fierce within them. "He understands me like no one else can." This small championing from Lucy sent something rippling through her mother. The protective shield she had clung to appeared to waver. For a split second, doubt crossed her features. "Just promise me you'll protect her," her voice softened, a hint of concession threading through her barriers. "I promise," he replied, the weight of his own assurances pressing deeper. "But I think we should partner in this together." That word, together, hung in the air, laced with possibility. Jake could feel the delicate threads of trust beginning to weave. However, uncertainty lurked back behind Lucy's mother's guarded eyes. She was still grappling with the choice in front of her. Yet Jake's mind raced forward to the complexities waiting in the wings. In drawing closer to Lucy, he would also be pushing against his own demons. Was he making the right decisions? Would truly connecting with Lucy's pain force him to confront his unresolved guilt and sorrow? His thoughts tumbled as the implications weighed on him. He realized he was navigating a treacherous course, mirroring the emotional battlefield that once consumed him. "Can I stay with you both a little longer?" he ventured, hesitant at the possibility of her denying his request. There was a pressing urgency that mounted within him. He wanted to soak in every moment of this precarious evolution. With a visible deep breath, Lucy's mother looked back at Lucy, weighing the implications of her answer. "Okay, but just for a while," she replied finally, her voice trembling under the weight of compromise and concern. Jake's heart surged, the tentative thread of connection was woven tighter. But beneath that relief was a foreshadowing whisper. This was merely the beginning. There was still a deep chasm to cross, and he sensed that more challenges awaited as they began to untangle their shared pain. As he joined Lucy and her mother on the swings, a palpable tension loomed. A darkness lurked just out of sight, threatening to unravel the progress they had made. And he realized with rising dread that he had stepped into a confrontation not only with their fears but also with his past, just as much in need of closure. But would Lucy's mother be able to embrace this journey ahead, or would she retreat once the weight of pain surged? The answer hung precariously in the air, thirsting to be uncovered. Jake settled onto the swing beside Lucy, the creak of the metal chains echoing in the stillness of the playground. He could feel tension resembling both an invitation and a threat, oscillating in the air between them. The initial warmth of connection they had begun to forge now felt overshadowed by the weight of unspoken truths. Lucy's gaze met his, a mixture of trust and trepidation shining in her eyes. "Do you really think you can help me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but it sliced through his steely resolve. "I know we can figure this out together," he replied, letting the genuine warmth of his belief in her seep into his words. Yet, a shiver of doubt threaded through him. Could he rally against the haunting shadows of his past to guide her out of her own? Lucy hesitated, swinging her legs softly, as the sunlight dappled their surroundings. The playful atmosphere of the playground stood sharply in contrast to the solemn reality they were navigating together. He could almost see the gears turning in her mind, the fears colliding with a flicker of hope she barely dared to acknowledge. Her mother watched from the sidelines, arms tightly crossed, a living depiction of conflict wanting to trust yet anchored by fear. Jake couldn't help but imagine the storms that raged within her, paralleling his own memories of hesitation and guilt. When had he learned to fight a war not just with weapons but with vulnerability? "I need to show you something," Lucy said suddenly, leaping off her swing, her demeanor shifting from uncertainty to determination. She grabbed his hand and led him toward a small grove of trees at the edge of the playground. There, hidden under a cluster of jagged branches, was a pile of stones she had meticulously gathered. "I call this my safe space," she declared, her voice steady but bright. "When I'm scared or sad, I come here to think." Jake knelt beside her, studying the assortment of stones. Each one had a name written on it in what appeared to be her childish scrawl names that were undoubtedly significant to her. His heart ached as he grasped the weight behind this makeshift shrine. It revealed her grief, encapsulated in a tangible form, something he understood all too well. "You've built something incredible here," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady despite his swirling emotions. "This takes courage to create. It's like your own little world." Lucy nodded, yet her eyes betrayed a deeper worry. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm holding too much inside. I don't know how to let it out." "And that's okay," Jake assured gently. "Letting it out isn't always easy, but you're not alone in this." He paused, contemplating his next move. He had to reach back into the shadows of his own experiences. "I kept a journal when I was feeling lost. Writing helped me release what weighed me down. Maybe we could try that together?" Her brow furrowed in contemplation, a splash of hope flickering again in her expression as she mulled over his suggestion. Meanwhile, he felt a new determination crystallizing within him. The pent-up grief he had buried for so long was surfacing, beckoning for acknowledgement. To support her, he would need to confront his own past. He glanced back at her mother, who had moved closer, the tension in her shoulders loosening just slightly. There was a glimmer of a shift, a potential opening of doors that had previously slammed shut. "Lucy, you're Mom and I want to help," Jake continued, buoyed by emerging clarity. "But we need to be honest about how we're feeling. No more hiding." The three of them stood together in that moment, one struggling with a tragic loss bound tightly within, another wrestling with ghosts that demanded to be laid to rest, and a parent caught in the crossfire of love and fear. As Lucy picked up a smooth stone, her tiny fingers tracing the letters etched upon it, Jake felt the sharp pang of urgency coursing through him. This wasn't just about easing Lucy's pain, it was a clarion call to unearth his own buried emotions. The very foundations of their fragile connection were at stake. The question hung unspoken in the air: would they embrace this intertwining journey toward healing or retreat to the shadows of their past pains? Lucy turned her focused gaze from the stone back to him, her eyes glistening with earnestness. "Will you help me unleash all of this?" Jake felt the tremor of renewed purpose surging through him. He wasn't merely offering guidance, he was confronting his demons alongside her, and he knew it would be a treacherous journey. "Absolutely," together we will discover the strength that lies in facing what we fear. Confidence strengthened his words, but a lingering apprehension shrouded his thoughts. He could sense the storm brewing on the horizon. As they left the sanctuary of the grove, the weight of the uncharted road ahead loomed. Little did they know, each step taken would march them right into confrontations both heart-wrenching and transformative. Would Lucy be able to unearth the courage to face her emotions head-on? And would Jake finally come to terms with the losses that still echoed in his heart? The horizon blurred into a chaotic mixture of hope and trepidation as they took their first steps into a shared journey of revelations. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as Jake, Lucy, and her mother sat together on the grass, their surroundings buzzing with the sounds of children laughing and playing in the distance. Yet, the three of them existed in a bubble, insulated by their shared burdens. Jake felt the weight of the moment, every breath laden with unspoken truths. "Let us find a place to write," he suggested, trying to infuse the moment with practicality. "Somewhere peaceful." Lucy nodded, her excitement barely concealed. Her mother hesitated, the fear still lingering in her eyes, but she too felt the gravity of their mission. Reluctantly, she began to trust the fragile alliance forming between her daughter and Jake. Together, they ventured into a nearby forest, where the trees loomed tall and majestic, creating a canopy that somehow felt protective. It was quieter here, and Jake hoped this would provide the solace Lucy needed to explore her emotions. Jake spread a blanket on the ground, the fabric catching the slight breeze. "Let us make a pact," he said, his voice steady, invoking the spirit of the commitment they were about to undertake. "No judgment, just honesty. We share what we feel in this space, it stays here." Lucy's eyes sparkled with determination. "I want to write about my stones," she stated. "Each one is a part of me. Maybe if I write about them, I can see clearly." "Absolutely," Jake encouraged, feeling a swell of admiration for her courage. "And you can share as much or as little as you want. This is your journey." As she took out her small notebook, flipping it open to find blank pages, Jake turned to face her mother. "It might be helpful for you too. Writing can clarify your thoughts." The mother shifted, her vulnerability exposed for the first time. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she admitted, a tremor in her voice. "What if I uncover things I cannot confront?" "That's why we're here together," Jake replied, their eyes locking. "You don't have to face it alone. And what you find can be the first step toward healing, not just for Lucy, but for you." He sensed her uncertainty shifting, inching toward acceptance. They both were aware that they had wandered into emotional territories that could change their lives for good, but the alternative remaining in the shadows held them hostage as much as the grief did. Lucy, positioned cross-legged, started to scribble, her pen moving quickly, almost frantically. Jake felt an urge to dive into his own thoughts. He pulled out his journal, an artifact of survival from his darker days, the pages filled with raw honesty. His hand hesitated over the blank first page as anticipation and doubt clawed at him. Deciding to confront the visceral storm brewing within, he began to write the story of his past, the deaths he had witnessed, the guilt that had followed him back like a specter, and the moments, however small, that had anchored him back into the present. With each word, he felt a layer peel away, exposing raw muscle beneath pain he had buried for so long. Suddenly, Lucy's voice broke through his focus. "Jake, can you help me with mine? I don't know how to start." He paused, feeling the weight of her request, the way it mirrored his own internal struggle. "Let us take a look together," he said finally, moving closer to her, leaning into the intimacy of vulnerability. As he read her words, tears began to well in his eyes. She spoke of her stones as representations of lost dreams and memories, each name invoking scenes of her life fractured by tragedy. "Lucy," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "you show incredible strength in sharing this. It takes enormous courage." They were not just healing, this was a crucible where Jake could see the reflection of his own journey. He grasped that supporting Lucy also meant diving deeper into his grief, confronting it. Looking at her mother, he saw the flickering hope ignite in her expression, the very same light he felt within himself. Then a thought struck him like lightning. What if Lucy's stones could guide the path not just to her healing, but to the reclamation of his own past? Lucy, would it help if we talk about each stone's story as we write? Sharing might lighten the load. She met his gaze, and he swore he saw the tumult of emotions battling within her: fear, uncertainty, but also the flicker of control emerging from chaos. "I'd like that," she finally said, and he could feel the vibration of hope merge in the air between them. But just as the transformative alliance began to solidify, the crack of a twig pulled his attention away. A shadowy figure emerged through the trees, a man, his presence clashing sharply against the peace they sought. Jake's instincts raced ahead, vowing to protect this fragile moment. The time had come to confront not just personal fears but an external reality that threatened to upend everything they had just built. Who was this man, and what did he want? The answer could redefine their path, pushing the boundaries of healing they had barely begun to embrace. Jake's heart raced as he assessed the man's approach. He exuded an undeniable air of authority, his posture rigid and eyes scanning the surroundings with keen focus. Jake moved subtly in front of Lucy and her mother, automatically positioning himself as their shield. A profound instinct to protect blossomed within him, growing stronger as each second ticked by. "Who are you?" Jake asked, his voice steady despite the chaotic beat of his heart. The man stopped a few paces away, hands resting casually by his sides but carrying an unspoken tension. "I'm here to help," he said, his voice low yet commanding. "I've been watching, waiting for the right moment." Lucy's mother shifted uncomfortably, her fear surfacing again, and Jake could feel the silence swell around them, thickening with uncertainty. "Help with what?" "We don't need anyone else," she interjected, her tone protective, aiming to shield Lucy from whatever shadow loomed over this encounter. The man held up a hand in surrender, a slight smile creeping across his face. "I understand you're hesitant. But I promise, I'm not here to cause trouble. If anything, I'm here to help Lucy confront the pain she carries." Jake shifted his stance, the tension between them palpable. "How do you know anything about her pain?" "I've seen it," the man replied, his gaze locking onto Lucy, who seemed frozen, processing the unexpected intrusion. "My name is Mark. I work with children who, like Lucy, carry burdens that are too heavy to bear alone." Jake breathed through his nose, weighing his instincts against Mark's words. Something deep inside him resonated with the mention of burdens. It reminded him of his own desperate battles. "And how do you plan to help?" "She's already taken a brave step by sharing her story," he said, maintaining an edge in his voice. Mark's demeanor shifted slightly, a hint of sincerity sparkling in his eyes. "What she needs most is understanding and support, a way to share those heavy stones without fear. I have experience that goes beyond mere observation. I've guided many kids through their grief and pain." Jake glanced at Lucy, who was now stirring. He could see a mixture of curiosity and apprehension on her face, a reflection of every child's desire to be understood. This man posed an opportunity or a threat? "What do you mean by supported?" Jake pressed, centering his focus on the potential for collaboration rather than confrontation. "I don't want to take over your space," Mark replied, a palpable sincerity in his tone. "I want to offer tools. Methods for transforming that pain into something constructive." Lucy's mother stepped forward. "And you think you can just walk in and fix everything with tools?" Mark responded gently, "No, it's not that simple. But I can teach her how to express her pain, not just through writing, but also through art, movement, things that allow her to reclaim her joys." Jake could feel Lucy's energy shift, an electrifying current communicating her desire to engage. "Can I see what you mean?" she asked, her voice wavering yet filled with a flicker of hope. Mark nodded, then straightened, revealing a small backpack. "If you're willing to try, I can show you something right here, right now." Jake exchanged looks with Lucy and her mother, gauging their readiness to embrace this unknown. He felt the fear settling, yet there was a burgeoning sense of possibility blossoming at the edges of his consciousness. What if this was the intervention they needed? "Where do we start?" Jake asked, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. He was already aware that bypassing this moment could mean missing not just another chance for Lucy, but his own too. "I'll guide you all through an exercise that allows emotions to spill without fear of judgment," Mark explained. As he began to lay out materials from his backpack, Jake felt the gears shifting within him. Part of him worried about opening the floodgates while another part was desperate to tackle demons they couldn't outrun. The past had already entrapped Lucy in silence. This was perhaps an opportunity to liberate them both from their burdens. But lurking behind that newfound opportunity, another thought whispered in the back of his mind: could he truly step back from his fears, letting someone else lead them into this territory fraught with memories and emotions? With uncertainty weaving through their dynamics, Jake prepared to enter an unknown chapter in their journey, the threshold now firm underfoot. He glanced at both Lucy and her mother, recognizing their willingness to embrace this moment, and he couldn't back down now. The experience lay ahead, promising transformation, but what darkness would they encounter as they began to unravel those hidden stones? Jake's gaze shifted back to Mark as he deftly unpacked an array of colorful art supplies: paints, brushes, and canvases, each piece feeling like a bridge between their existing reality and an unknown territory of healing. The vibrant colors seemed almost to pulsate with potential, contrasting sharply with the tangible somberness in the air. As Mark set up the canvas and began explaining the exercise, Jake could sense Lucy's curiosity growing. Her eyes sparkled with the hint of enthusiasm that had gradually been buried under layers of grief and isolation. Jake felt a flutter of hope as he turned to assess her mother, whose skepticism still loomed large but was beginning to waver. The delicate balance between protection and acceptance was shifting, and Jake could feel the weight of his own reservations. "Art is communication without words," Mark continued, his voice soothing but firm as he invited Lucy to join him at the canvas. "It's a way to express what's inside when words feel too heavy or wrong." Jake felt the knot in his stomach tighten. What if this didn't work? What if this process only opened floodgates that could drown them all? But he couldn't bear to squash the glimmer of brave hope that flickered in Lucy's eyes. "Why don't we start with your favorite color?" Mark suggested, his tone inviting Lucy into the space of creativity rather than forcing her to confront the darkness immediately. "You can use it to paint a feeling, something that represents your joy, your pain, or whatever you want it to be." The silence deepened as Lucy contemplated the question. She stepped cautiously toward the supplies, her fingers brushing against the vibrant colors, as if they might ignite something long dormant. Mark remained a few steps back, allowing her to take the lead without pressure. Jake noticed the way Lucy's brow furrowed in concentration, and as she selected a bright blue paint, he felt an echo of that same joy infusing his chest. The blue was not just any color, it felt like a release, a deep exhale amidst the suffocating silence that had characterized their lives for so long. Perhaps it was a sign of something deeper awakening within her. He took a breath himself, deciding in this moment to push aside his own fears and worries. The weight of his previous skepticism about Mark's intentions began to lessen. Instead, he focused on the transformation unfolding in front of him. "Can I join you?" Jake ventured, his voice steady but softer now, conscious of the need to foster this fragile moment. "Sure," Lucy replied, a hint of excitement threading through her voice. With her permission, he stepped closer, the divide between their troubled past and potential future narrowing in that single instant. As they began to paint side by side, Jake found himself lost in the activity's rhythm. The brush strokes became a meditative process, allowing him a moment of reprieve to wrestle with his own emotions. With every flick of the brush on the canvas, he uncovered pieces of himself he had long buried, his own pain woven into the vibrant landscape of colors emerging. Mark loomed nearby, offering gentle nudges when necessary, but mainly observing as if he were the guide on a journey through uncharted waters. Each interaction felt significant, revealing the layers of defense Jake had built up over the years. What began as a cautious foray into the world of artistic expression turned into a vivid exploration of emotions that Jake hadn't acknowledged in what felt like ages. The canvas soon became a repository of vibrant feelings, a testament to both Lucy and Jake's struggles and triumphs. In that shared act of creation, Jake recognized a personal revelation: vulnerability was not an act of weakness but rather a gateway to authentic connections. He lifted his gaze towards Lucy, who was lost in her own world of color and shapes. An unspoken understanding passed between them, as if they were threading together their narratives of pain and hope. But as the session continued, Jake's confidence in this new dynamic began to waver again. A haunting thought crept over him: was this connection enough to withstand the inevitable challenges they would face once the art was complete? The moment began to stretch, presenting its tension as a question loomed: could the tenderness of the colors translate into the resilience needed for the harder conversations that lay just ahead? Jake was drawing closer to something profound, yet the shadows of doubt still loomed. How quickly could they weave this newfound strength into a narrative that would stand the test of reality? The session continued, the air thick with creativity and hesitation. Each brushstroke felt like a gamble, a step further into a terrain where feelings often went unexplored. Jake noticed the way Lucy's concentration deepened. It was as if she were piecing together a puzzle of her own emotions, each color revealing fragments of joy, loss, and resilience. Yet with every observation came a swell of insecurity. Jake's own canvas was still a blank slate except for a few hesitant strokes. What could he express that would resonate with Lucy? Or worse, what if she didn't choose to express anything at all? He could feel his scribbled fear creeping back in the specter of inadequacy whispering that he might fail to reach her. Do you feel it? Mark's question interrupted his thoughts, drawing Jake's attention back to the process. Sometimes the colors choose us more than we choose them. As Jake considered this, he realized he was afraid to fully immerse himself. But wasn't that precisely what they were trying to do: delve into feelings buried for too long? What was it that held him back? Fear of judgment? Fear of revealing himself? The mere act of creation felt risky yet liberating, teetering on the edge of identity. Eventually, he dipped his brush in a murky green, the hue speaking to that murky confusion swirling in his heart. With each stroke, Jake imagined the tangled roots of his own history, the moments of anger and pain nestled beneath the surface. The movement felt almost primal, a release of years spent under the weight of resentment and unspoken grief. Across from him, Lucy was engrossed in her art, her focus unwavering. Suddenly, Mark encouraged her to share what she was painting, an invitation that sent Jake's heart racing. Would she even want to? I'm not sure, Lucy stammered, glancing from the canvas to her mother, as if searching for approval. The skepticism still lingered in the air, like a cloud threatening rain. Jake's pulse quickened in solidarity with her uncertainty. You don't have to share, but sometimes showing what is inside can be freeing, Mark suggested gently, his demeanor warm and reassuring. Jake watched, entranced by Lucy's gradual transformation. She seemed to wrestle with doubt, before finally inhaling deeply and beginning to articulate her feelings. It felt good to choose blue, she finally said, a small smile emerging. It's calm, like when I think of everything the way it used to be. As she spoke, Jake felt the curse of his own silence. Would his attempt at self-expression draw Lucy back into the depths of her sorrow? Yet Mark's presence was a guiding light, an anchor in the chaotic sea of emotions. Then what about some other colors? Can you represent how you feel about everything? Mark asked, shifting back to invite Lucy to dig deeper into her emotions. Lucy paused, her eyes drifting to the other paints, hesitating before selecting a fiery red. This is how angry I feel sometimes. I miss her so much, and I don't know how to tell anyone. So I just hold it all in. The words hung heavy in the air, each syllable resonating in Jake's chest like a drum. Jake's heart raced, a juxtaposition of revelation simmering within him. Perhaps her honesty had unlatched something within him, too. Wasn't his own anger rooted in a similar loneliness? Feeling the weight of shared sorrow, he took a meaningful gulp, ready to make his own leap. "Can I show you something too?" he finally managed, his voice trembling yet determined. The room seemed to lean in, the silence rife with mutual anticipation. As he readied his brush and tested various colors, an image took form in his mind. In that pivotal moment, he was confronted by the urgency of vulnerability. While he painted, he realized he was not just sharing his fears, he was laying the groundwork for their connection to flourish. With every stroke of color bright and somber alike, Jake felt an intense urgency to face the threads of their shared grief and unseen battles. The act of creating together began to weave a new narrative, one where their pain was not a divider but a bridge. But as Jake mixed shades, a sudden uncertainty resurfaced. How much of his own pain was ready to be unveiled? He could sense the chasm of deeper truths yet to explore, a cliff they would eventually have to leap from. Would they find a net to catch their fall or merely face the ground below? In this newfound artistic space, Jake could feel the tides shifting. The moment was rich with potential yet fraught with tension as he poised himself on the verge of significant revelation. The pivotal question now hung in the air like the unpainted canvas before him: would they allow their vulnerability to reflect the realities needing to be confronted, or would fear once again silence their voices? Jake's hand hovered over the palette, ready to dive into an intended explosion of color but plagued by the weight of unexpressed emotions. Just moments ago, he had promised to share, yet the magnitude of his uncharted grief rendered him paralyzed. The raw truth of Lucy's revelation echoed in his ears, and he grappled with an unsettling dread. What if his painted words muddled hers? "Just breathe, man," he murmured to himself, glancing at the vibrant hues arrayed before him. If colors could speak, what tales would they tell? Each shade seemed to beckon him to navigate through undulating waves of his despair. He decided to embrace the fiery red. Lucy had boldly chosen a color he felt reflected not only anger, but also the flame of passion and the haunting pain of loss. What would it symbolize for him? His brush reluctantly dipped, colors mixing together, creating a crimson explosion of uncertainty. The hesitation gnawed at him, yet, the potent surges of emotion demanded expression. As he painted, fleeting thoughts invaded his mind. Why was this so hard? Was vulnerability always this frightening? No sooner had he processed one question than another would rise to overwhelm him. Yet, with each stroke, there came a release, a small defiance against his ingrained fears. "What do I even want to say?" he whispered, half hoping Mark could hear him. The art therapist's calm presence remained steady, like the eye of the storm, providing an anchor in Jake's turbulent thoughts. "Try to get honest, Jake," Mark's voice reverberated softly, encouragingly. "What do these colors mean to you?" And there it was, an invocation that snapped Jake back to reality. Though his initial surrender to the canvas was mired in uncertainty, he knew that denying his feelings wouldn't erase them. With a hasty flick, he spread the resounding red across the page, layering it over green, creating a murky pool of conflicting emotions. Anger coiled tightly around his heart, choking firm the bond he sought to form with Lucy. "No one wants to see your pain, Jake. No one will understand," the bitter thought flickered past. But Mark's gentle prompting nudged that voice away. Feeling the rush of exhilaration alongside trepidation, he layered more colors: amber, almost like flickering hope, and blue, the color of crippling uncertainty. As he painted, Jake's thoughts overlapped in a cacophony of remembrance that crescendoed into a distinct melody, the memory of a past loss, a family dispute eclipsing familial bonds, a promise left unspoken, joy overshadowed by isolation. "Lucy," he called suddenly, regaining focus as if her name brought clarity. "It's not just anger I feel. I realize I've been holding on to layers of hurt." The words fell out before he could question them. Lucy's attention shifted, her eyes glimmered with the essence of recognition. Did she understand? The connecting thread stretched thin between them, woven with strands of shared grief. "Sometimes it feels like I'm screaming inside, but without sound." The words were raw, but Jake felt an unusual comfort in articulating them. It was a terrifying confession, yet it liberated him from the chains of silence. "Yes," Lucy whispered, eyes reflecting his pain. "Like no one sees your heart, right?" In that instant, vulnerability transformed the atmosphere, and they stood on the precipice of mutual healing. Jake sensed a bond forming, fragile yet unyielding. Here, unburdened by inherent fears, they could uncover the light that lay beneath their struggles. He thrust a brush towards the blank void on his canvas. "Then let us color this scream," he said, suddenly resolute. "Let us let it out." But as their brushes danced together on the shared canvas, a metaphor for their newfound connection, Jake was still aware of deeper currents stirring beneath their playful strokes. Anxiety flickered in his chest. What if this bridge they were constructing could not support the weight of the truths yet to come? With each shared sweep of color, he could feel the vibrant, pulsating energy rise, functioning not only as an outlet for their grief, but also as a catalyst for something that felt palpably transformative. In that moment of patient creation, however, lurking shadows of indecision cast doubt. They had opened a door, but would they dare venture through it? Would they explore the depths, revealing the intricacies of pain that could break them, or would they find resilience in their collective journey of expression? The choice loomed, the air crackling with unspoken revelations as they painted on, and Jake realized that this endeavor, far from being a mere act of creation, was an invitation to confront his demons and emerge renewed. Somewhere deep within the unfolding moment, a subtle shift hinted at the dawning possibility of understanding long buried. The question remained, how far were they willing to plunge into their shared pain to unearth the strength buried beneath it? Would they take the plunge, or retreat into silence? The colors mingled on the canvas, vibrant yet imperfect, much like the emotions swirling within Jake, Lucy, and her mother. Each brushstroke became a catharsis, a shared expression of pain that had long gone unacknowledged. There, amidst the splotches of red and blue, Jake recognized a reflection of his own struggle, a solitude that had followed him home from the battlefield. Lucy leaned closer, her hands shaking slightly as she added her fiery red to the canvas. "It's like I can finally let everything out," she said, her voice barely breaking the stillness. Jake watched as her face alighted with energy. She was stepping into uncharted territory, allowing the paints to carry her fears and joys alike. "That's the power of creation," Jake encouraged, a newfound confidence surging within him. "It gives voice to what we can't say out loud." But as he offered these words, he felt his own fear surfacing once more, like a tide threatening to wash away their burgeoning connections. Could he truly navigate the depths of his pain in tandem with Lucy's unveiling? Would the weight of their pasts prove too heavy amidst the tides of emotional vulnerability they were now exploring together? Mark glanced at him, his nod affirming the shift in Jake's disposition. "You're doing great. The act of sharing helps lighten the load." Jake found strength in Mark's unwavering support, adding more vibrant colors eager to bridge the gap between their experiences. He envisioned himself forging paths toward resolution, crafting a space where their vulnerabilities intermingled with courageous possibilities, where they could emerge transformed. Suddenly, Lucy turned from the canvas, her eyes darting to her mother, who had been quietly observing their creative expression. "Mama, do you want to share too?" she asked, her voice echoing with childlike hope. It took a moment, every second felt like an eternity waiting for a response, but kindness flickered in her mother's eyes, a softening that sent a ripple of encouragement through Jake's heart. I don't know if I can," her mother admitted, hesitation etched across her brow. Jake stepped closer, his own heart racing. "You don't have to be perfect," he interjected, urgency threading through his voice. "Just be honest. We're all here to explore together." He felt the gravitas of this moment. It had the potential to redefine everything, not just for Lucy, but for her mother too. The canvas was more than a medium, it became an opportunity for liberation and confrontation. "Letting go of that fear can set you free," he added, his words infused with his own unwavering resolve. With a deep sigh, Lucy's mother nodded. "Maybe I should try," she murmured, the walls of her protective demeanor visibly beginning to crumble. As she picked up a brush, Jake's heart swelled with pride. It was an affirmation proof that vulnerability, when shared, could dissolve barriers that kept them all tethered to shadows of the past. Lucy beamed, excitement spilling over her features. The three of them worked together, mixing colors, creating textures that spoke volumes of what had previously remained unexpressed. The atmosphere shifted, emotional permission was granted in the act of creating together. Mark positioned himself nearby, facilitating a serene environment as if to say, "Trust in this journey." With each new stroke, Jake felt transformation unfold within him. Old wounds began to unearth themselves, moments of guilt resurfacing, crowding his ingenuity. But he fought against it. The act of bridging experiences between them held the power to encourage healing. "Lucy, you've done something incredible by allowing us in," Jake encouraged her. "Just as this canvas holds our colors, our stories are intertwined. Let us create something beautiful together." Her eyes shone bright, taking in his words. "It feels like we're making something new," she exclaimed, enthusiasm buoying her spirit. Jake turned to face her mother, who was now lost in creating her own expression, cautiously mixing colors, a tentative formation giving way to hidden emotions. Jake realized that this movement, this exploration, was opening doors that had long been wedged shut. "Do you see how we're all part of this?" Jake continued, directing his words towards Lucy's mother, who still grappled with her past. "This canvas is a representation of who we are. It's messy, raw, but beautiful. We're not defined by just our pain, but how we choose to move forward." The words resonated deeply, a sentiment born from the battlefield he had yet to fully navigate, the truths that had weighed him down for so long. As Lucy and her mother continued to paint, Jake felt the urge rising within, an urgency to reclaim his own narrative amid their shared vulnerability. Taking a deep breath, he set his brush down for a moment. "Can I share something?" Both Lucy and her mother paused, the quiet thrum of anticipation entwining their energies. "Growing up, I never spoke about my pain. It scared me. The fear of being alone felt more comfortable. But now, standing here, I realize it's time to stop hiding," he said, voice steady and clear. "I've lost friends who never came home. I carried that grief, that unstated anger, and it almost destroyed me." The silence thickened between them, suffused with understanding. Lucy's mother glanced at him, reading between the lines of his narrative. For the first time, they were peeling away layers, revealing emotions long concealed beneath a facade of strength. "I love deeper now because of that loss," Jake continued, heart pounding with each revelation. "If I remain silent, I fail to honor those connections. We all need to honor our histories together." With those words shared, he felt something shift within the ethereal air surrounding them. Moments passed, reflective silence settling amidst the colors of their shared artwork. Together, Lucy echoed softly, her gentle voice permeating the air, and Jake sensed the transformation was solidifying, the act itself constructing lasting connections among the three of them. He realized, then, that not only was he helping Lucy face her burdens, but he was also challenging his own shadows that had loomed larger than life. It was a mutual exchange of healing, a fortification so powerful it could shatter the silence of despair that had ensnared them all. As they stepped back to behold the canvas, a masterpiece unfurled before them, bold strokes of color intertwined against the backdrop of endurance, each brushstroke telling their stories. Jake stood awash in a newfound sense of accomplishment. He had not only unleashed his truth but had earned Lucy's trust while forging a bridge toward her mother's understanding. The tremors of fear and frustration transformed into solid confidence, a recognition of competence neither of them had expected. Jake felt a fierce pride blooming within him, just as expected growth was now palpable, a certainty unwavering through the chaos he had fought so hard to connect with. In that moment, surrounded by the vivid colors on the canvas of their lives, Jake knew that healing was not an end goal but a continuous journey, and they navigated it together. As Lucy offered her mother a bright green stroke of paint, a color representing hope, Jake prepared to take the next step, ushering forward a declaration of intentions. Together they could reclaim their stories, bold yet infused with vulnerability, grit, and growth. With everything laid bare, Jake felt ready to help not just Lucy, but also her mother, to guide them into a realm of possibility. Their trifecta of transformation stretched far beyond the paint. It encapsulated a unified venture toward heartfelt acceptance, facing every fear head-on. He turned toward Mark, a silent acknowledgement passing between them, one that held the promise of countless opportunities ahead. The way unveiled before them felt solid, brimming with potential. They were no longer simply participants in this emotional tableau, they were co-creators of their future, poised to face what awaited on the path of resilience ahead. This realization settled within Jake. He had transformed from a hardened soldier isolated by his past to a compassionate listener equipped to forge new connections. Jake felt that solid confidence deep within his core, the clarity of purpose illuminating a life he would bravely step into. As the canvas reflected their shared truths, he understood the value of embracing vulnerability, of honoring both pain and happiness alike. And in that moment, Jake understood the vast potential residing not only within himself, but also the triad they had collectively formed, a triad fortified in love, courage, and the enduring spirit of healing. Years of silence drifted away in the brightness of warmth and empathy that enveloped them. The canvas stood as testament to their resilience, the profound understanding that they were not alone in their struggles, but united in their pursuit of healing together. Now was the time. The journey lay ahead, simmering with promise, awaiting them all. With a steady heart, Jake was ready to claim this vibrant chapter. This was the moment he had fought for, a moment he would embrace fully, a moment where he could rediscover his voice, endless and brimming, waiting to be expressed. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the world with rich shades of gold, Jake felt a resolute triumph unfurl within him, knowing the true power of transformation lay right ahead. The journey was just beginning, and the opportunity to share this experience with each other was the greatest gift yet. Now, take your own leap today. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Yes, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice is powerful. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second for inspiration. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting this journey together.